So how I structured this is that I'm going to give you 5 reasons why European sports tech rocks. And if you process this, if you remember this, you can, at the next sports tech conference, might it be virtual, might it be in real life, you can remember these and brag to whoever you're meeting there and come up with some good knowledge, hopefully. It's only going to be 1 to 3 slides each, so I'm going to keep it short and brief and not too long. All right, let's jump right in. Reason number 1 why the European sports tech ecosystem is great is because it has a positive funding trend. So first of all, I wanna show you the global funding universe. So this is all funding that went into global sports tech over the last 5 years. And the first thing you see is that it's an up and down and up and down all the time. And one thing to notice is that 2019 was not a very good year in sports tech globally. So actually it was lower than in 2016 and 2018. But if we now look at the funding situation in European sports tech, we see that with the exception of 2017, it's always going up and up and up. So the year 2019, not like the other global sports tech ecosystems, was a really good one for Europe. So actually it was a record high number, and for the first time crossing the 500 million euro investment mark. So an incredibly good year for European sports tech, while North America, by the way, had a 5-year low, and Asia also had a not so good year in sports tech. So we think this is pretty cool, but we still have to put that into perspective, because if you look at the total number of investment that went into European sports tech, that is still below Asia and far below North America. But we have one indicator that says that Europe might be onto something. And if you look at the number of funding rounds that happened over the last 5 years, which is at 877 for Europe. That's that blue line that you see across that graph. And this is a very high number. So this might indicate that we have seen some really good early stage investment in Europe, and hopefully that will explode over the next couple of years into some really good and successful companies. So this is point number 1. We have seen that the funding trend is exceptionally well. Reason number 2, we said it before, we're going to say it today, and we're going to say it again in the future. London/UK is a global leader in sports tech, and it's incredibly important for the European sports tech ecosystem. So London is on position number 8. And one thing you immediately see when you look on that funding picture, is that London, that New York City is far off the roof here. But you will also see that there are a lot of American and Chinese flags. Actually, positions number 1 to 7 is completely in Chinese and American hand. And London is the first one that leads the pack of the other cities then. So London is the first city that breaks into that duopoly. And if you look at this from a European perspective, we only have Bucharest, yes, that Bucharest, because they had one very big deal in the last year. So we think this is probably going to be just a one-off thing. And we also have Paris there, which is the second European city in sports tech, I would say. So it's only really London breaking into that Chinese and American duopoly. And yeah, shout out to Bangalore, who's also performing incredibly well. One more thing to highlight though on this slide is the number of funding rounds. That's again the blue line that we see here. And you see that London had 213 funding rounds over the last 5 years. That's a lot of funding rounds. That's more than, for example, San Francisco on rank number 4. And it's almost as much as that beast on number 1, which is New York City. So again, a lot of early stage funded companies, and there's hope that over the next couple of years, we see some really good success cases coming out of London. Speaking about the UK in general, we have another slide, and this shows the top 15 countries globally in sports tech by the amount of startups, just the amount, not the funding amount. And it's actually great to see that UK is on position number 2, with 11% of all startups globally in sports tech. Let's not speak about the US, that's incredibly high, but UK is leading the rest of the world. And has actually twice as many startups as India in sports tech. And I guess we all know that there are a lot of sports tech startups in India. Another thing to highlight though from a European perspective is that from these top 15 countries, 9 of them are from Europe. And this is actually a very good connection to the highlight number 3, the reason number 3 that I want to bring up, that Europe actually is home to multiple hotspots. So it's important to notice that Europe is not only London, is not only UK, there's more to it. And the first graph we're going to look at is the top 15 countries in European sports tech. Yes, London is leading. It's a really good amount of funding. But if you look at number 2 and 3, France and Germany, they combine for as much investment, as UK has, which is incredibly well. And if we take into consideration that, for example, Urban Sports Club or One Football had big funding rounds that are not disclosed, we have to say that Germany would probably rank even higher and would probably be somewhere close to the UK. But also when looking at all the other countries on that map, for example, the Nordics, we have Sweden on number 5, we have Denmark on number 7, we have Finland on number 9. If you combine all of these three, so look at the Nordic region, actually the Nordics would rank on position number 2. So another very interesting region coming out of Europe. And even position number 6, Russia, has almost a quarter of the investment of the UK. Also very good numbers. A little bit weaker though is the south of Europe, especially Italy, who's not on the map, and Spain, who has a fairly low amount of investment compared to the many startups they have in Spain. But nevertheless, Europe has a very broad, very strong basis of different countries and different hubs, which we obviously like very much. This is also reflected, by the way, if we look at the same information, the funding amount by city. I don't want to highlight too much here. The one thing I want to highlight the most, though, is if you look to the very right, we have others, which basically means all the cities from position 16 onwards. And they all together combine for 320 million euro. I think this is outstanding. So this is almost as much as number 2 and number 3, Bucharest and Paris combined. So we have, again, I'm saying it again, a broad variety of countries and cities all contributing to that strength of the ecosystem. Pretty cool. All right, reason number 4. We not only get cool funding, good funding here in Europe, we not only have a good ecosystem, but we also have great companies, and also great companies, that's important to highlight, who meet global trends. What are, again, the global trends in sports tech, you might ask? And if you read our reports, there are 3 things we always highlight. We highlight that fitness, content, and esports are the topics that constantly get a lot of funding and a lot of attention. And if we look at the top funded companies in Europe, and here I'm going to use our sports tech framework to run you through it very quickly. In the green area, we have activity and performance. That is everything for the athlete, everybody who does sport. The magenta area, that's everything for the consumer of sport. And everything in the blue area, that is for the executive who has to run events, leagues, a gym, a stadium, these kind of things. And we have various subsectors in each sector, obviously. So if we look at the framework and what's happening in there, we're going to see this theme of fitness, content, esports reflected. So activity and performance, that's the one, the sector who got the most funding, and it's actually driven by a lot of fitness solutions. There we obviously find companies like Freeletics, very successful. We have Ura, the fitness ring. We have other very successful companies from Europe in fitness. And in fans and content, who received the second most amount of funding. This is obviously very strong in the second topic, which is content. Minute Media, great company who has been acquiring a couple other companies lately. Odro is also a content play. And in the blue area, which is more like a B2B play, also there we find content to keep that theme going. With Sports Radar, very successful company, successful raises of funding by, for example, Mark Cuban, Michael Jordan, exceptional company. And to cover the last topic, which is esports. Esports is across the board. For example, in activity and performance, we have Shadow. In management organization, we have S-Force. So if you look at this picture here and see these companies, the majority of companies are in that esports fitness content theme that we always come up with. Cool, last but not least, one more reason why the European ecosystem rocks in sports tech. We have actually an unparalleled ecosystem of supporting initiatives that actually make it possible that this ecosystem is thriving so much. And I brought you 2 slides to underline this. Slide number 1 is an overview of all the accelerator and incubator programs in European sports tech. These are the initiatives that help startup to grow, to accelerate, to find funding. I'm not going to go into any details. All I'm saying is that you see it yourself. This map is very dense. There are so many initiatives, and they're so colorful. There's from so many different backgrounds. For example, we have football clubs running them. We have family offices running them. We have current athletes or former athletes running them. We have brands running them. We have public organizations running them. So a broad variety of different initiatives, and all the main countries are actually covered. The second slide, even though it looks very similar, covers all the other initiatives. These are the innovation hubs, the network organizations, the local matchmakers. Again, so many countries covered, such a variety. And here we see big football clubs like FC Barcelona, Real Madrid. We see local initiatives like Nordic SportsTech, London SportsTech, SportsTech Poland, SportsTech Ireland, the German national team, UEFA, you name it, Think Sport, fabulous initiatives from Switzerland. So many cool initiatives supporting that ecosystem. So these actually are the 5 reasons why European sports tech rocks. But on the flip side, there's also one thing that we keep highlighting that the European sports tech ecosystem is missing. We think that there are not enough funds and investors in Europe. And we made a little overview about the investors that we see in Europe that are active. We have the ones that are more on the seed and early stage of things. We have the ones that are more on the proper VC private equity side. But they are not enough. There should be more. We don't have enough funding European sports tech. You've seen it in the graphic. And one theme I have to highlight, we have seen it over and over again in the last couple of years. We have seen announcements of funds from professional football clubs, from private initiatives. They have been announcing funds, but they have not actually been able to close the fund or haven't been able to close it yet. So this is really something that we hope that we will see more in the future. We appreciate these initiatives, but we really hope that they're going to close their funds and that money will go into European sports tech startups as well. Cool. So this is the European situation. And we always look very jealously to North America. There is a super high amount of investors. It's incredible, basically on both coasts, in the Midwest, one in Toronto. So the support system from money perspective is incredible in North American sports tech, but more about that next week. All right, these are, again, the 5 reasons why we think European sports tech rocks. I hope that you got something out of it. This is something you can use, like I said, to brag at the next sports tech conference or wherever you might need it.